To save my bipolar sister, my parents personally sent me to prison. 5 years later, my sentence was finally over. On the day of my release, they didn't come to welcome me home. Instead, they were accompanying my sister as she registered for her new job as a correctional officer at the very same prison. When they saw me, my parents froze in awkward silence. After a long pause, Eleanor spoke first, her voice trembling.
Luna.
Back then, making you take the fall for Chloe was our only choice. We never expected you to legally cut ties with us on the spot. You didn't even call us once from inside. I avoided her reaching hand, packed my last shirt into my bag, and turned to leave. As I brushed past them, Arthur grabbed my sleeve, his eyes red with anger.
Luna.
It's been 5 years. Are you seriously going to hold on to the past forever? Is this how you treat your parents and your sister? Come home with us, so we can talk. You have nowhere else to go anyway.
Talk.
What was there to talk about? I was no longer that little girl who begged for her parents' love.
Besides,
I looked at the car parked not far away and pulled my arm back with force. I do have a place to go. My family is already here to pick me up. Seeing me dodge his touch, Arthur's temper flared instantly.
Luna Vance.
Did prison rot your brain? You don't even recognize your own parents. 5 years, and you're still this stubborn. You're not even half as lovable as Chloe. His voice was so loud that several guards looked over, making the air freeze with awkwardness. Eleanor quickly patted his arm, whispering to him to calm down. Keep it down, Arthur. Don't ruin Chloe's first day. Then she turned to me, forcing a weak, apologetic smile. Luna, you know how your father is. Don't take it to heart. You haven't contacted us all these years. Did you really think we wanted you in prison? Silly girl. You're our daughter too. If you hadn't refused to take our calls back then, we would have hired the best lawyers to keep you out. Her eyes welled with tears, looking exactly like a heartbroken, helpless mother. But she seemed to have forgotten one thing. I had done nothing wrong. The crime was entirely forced on me just to protect Chloe. I took a step back, my voice dead calm. Save it. Since the day you made me take the blame for Chloe, we stopped being a family. My words made Arthur's face darken instantly. Look at her. Look at her attitude. How did we raise such an ungrateful brat? He raised his hand to slap me, but the sudden ringing of his phone cut him off. He answered it quickly. Chloe's lazy voice echoed from the speaker. Dad, I'm done with the paperwork. Drive the car to the west gate to pick me up. The main gate is too far, and I'm too lazy to walk. Sure, sweetheart. We're on our way. Eleanor quickly chimed in, trying to break the tension. See, Luna? Chloe is still as lazy as ever. Why don't you come with us to pick up your sister? She got the job today. She's thrilled. We're family, Luna. There's no grudge that can't be settled. Come home with us. Enough. I didn't want to watch their family drama anymore. I turned to walk away, but Eleanor grabbed my arm. She pulled too hard. I was so thin and frail that I lost my balance and slammed onto the concrete ground. Eleanor stared at me for a long time, her lips trembling, but she couldn't say a word. Even Arthur was stunned when he saw how skeletal I looked. Did you refuse to eat in prison? Why are you so skin and bones? Refusing to eat? What a joke. In their eyes, Chloe, with her manic episodes, was a delicate porcelain doll they had to protect. But me, the healthy daughter, was supposed to be made of steel. So, every time Chloe messed up, I was the one who took the blame and the punishment. When Chloe put bugs in the principal's coffee, they were terrified she would have a breakdown if punished. So, I took the fall and was publicly suspended. When Chloe's bullying almost cost a girl her life, I confessed to being the mastermind. From that day on, I didn't have a single friend left at school. Until that final time, when Chloe committed the ultimate crime. That was the first time I refused to take the fall. In return, my father gave me a brutal slap. That slap ruptured my right eardrum. To this day, I can't hear a single thing on that side. 5 years had passed. Chloe had smoothly graduated and got her job. She had a bright future ahead of her. How wonderful. I looked at them coldly and asked, go back with you? And then what? Are you really going to claim me as your daughter? If people find out that Chloe's sister is a convicted felon, your precious daughter's career will be ruined instantly, won't it? Their faces turned pale as sheet. The phone rang again. Chloe's voice on the other end was getting extremely impatient. Ultimately, after a brief struggle on their faces, they turned and got into their car. After picking her up, the familiar black SUV drove past the main gate again. As the car rolled by, bursts of happy laughter floated out of the half-open window. The guard who knew me well couldn't help but sigh. Your new colleague's family seems so close. Her parents came by last week, buying us lunch and sending gifts, just asking us to look out for her. By the way, I saw you talking to them earlier.
Do you know them?
I couldn't help but smile faintly.
Ido.
I used to be their daughter, too. The guard's eyes widened in shock. He probably couldn't comprehend how two children from the same family could end up so differently, one a felon, the other a correctional officer. A long, long time ago, I was also the darling of that family. The first thing Arthur did after work every day was to drive all the way across town to wait in line at my favorite bakery. He would tuck the warm cake inside his coat, terrified it would get cold on his way home. Every night, Eleanor would sit by my bed, softly reading me bedtime stories until I drifted off to sleep. If you scrolled through Eleanor's phone gallery back then, it was filled with pictures of me, laughing, crying, playing. The three of us always squeezed tight in photos, with me in the middle, as they whispered, "Luna will always be our favorite little girl." Even after Chloe was born, they didn't love me any less. But Chloe was a troublemaker from day one. She was either hitting other kids or getting hit by them. My parents were always busy cleaning up her messes, but they were also terrified I would feel left out. To keep things fair, every time they neglected me because of Chloe, they bought me an expensive gift. Until Chloe turned 7, when she jumped off the school's second-floor balcony without any warning. That was the first day my parents forgot to pick her up from school because they were attending my parent-teacher conference. With red eyes, Eleanor had hugged me and said, "Chloe is sick, Luna. We have to spend more time watching her from now on. Otherwise, she's going to hurt herself. You're the older sister. Can you understand Mommy and Daddy?" Arthur also spoke with a raspy voice. "Luna, you're the older sister. You need to help us look after Chloe." Wanting to ease their burden, I nodded without a second thought. I will definitely take good care of her.
I was too young then.
I didn't know what bipolar disorder meant, and I didn't understand the heavy weight of the words taking care of her. I had no idea that those simple words would completely ruin my life. In the beginning, taking care of her just meant giving up my toys to Chloe when she threw tantrums and then apologizing to others on her behalf. But gradually, she learned to weaponize her illness. Whenever she wanted something, she would throw things, hit people, or even threaten to jump off buildings. And my job went from apologizing for her to taking the blame for her actions. Compared to her life, my sacrifices became taken for granted. My parents' eyes barely lingered on me anymore. They poured every ounce of their energy into Chloe. It happened on my 19th birthday. I had bought a small cake with the money I earned from my college part-time job, and I had carefully prepared gifts for them. I lit the candles, waiting for them to come home. The candles burned down to the bottom. Midnight came and went. My phone remained silent. I couldn't stay awake and fell asleep on the couch. I was startled awake by the sound of the front door slamming open. I forced a smile and stood up, trying to present my gifts. But before I could even speak, Arthur, looking extremely frustrated, snapped at me. "What time do you think it is? Your sister is in deep trouble, and you're here enjoying cake." With a swing of his arm, he knocked my cake onto the floor. Looking at the ruined cake, Eleanor suddenly broke down in tears. "What are we going to do? Chloe is sick. She'll commit suicide if she's taken away. She's still so young." Suddenly, Eleanor locked her eyes on me. "Luna, I beg you, please help your sister one last time." "What happened?" I felt a chill run down my spine, my voice trembling. "Take the blame for her." Eleanor looked behind Arthur. Chloe peeked out from behind their backs, crying hysterically, her body shaking like a leaf. My head buzzed. I stared at them blankly. What did she do? Her professor gave her a bad grade, so Chloe pushed her down the stairs. Eleanor's voice shook violently. And Arthur closed his eyes, his throat tightening. The professor was 8 months pregnant. Neither survived. My mind went completely blank. I stumbled back, barely finding my voice. "So, how do you want me to help?" Eleanor grabbed my arms with a death grip. "Luna, take the fall for her, please." We asked around. "At worst, you'll go to a youth detention center for a few years. But Chloe is too sick. She will die in there. Her life has just begun. We'll handle your college withdrawal later. Don't worry, we will spend every penny we have to hire the best lawyers to get you out early." I stared at her in utter disbelief, my legs turning to jelly.
What about me?
"I worked so hard to get into my dream university. You're just going to ruin my life. How can you say that?" Eleanor looked deeply hurt. "Your sister is sick. You're the older sister. It's your job to protect her. College doesn't matter. We will support you for the rest of your life. Once this blows over, it won't affect your future at all." I stared at her, my eyes burning with tears, and screamed at the top of my lungs. "No, I won't do it." Chloe immediately wailed. Arthur lunged forward and slapped me across the face. The force of the blow knocked me straight to the floor. My right ear felt hot and wet. I touched it, and my hand came back covered in blood. Seeing my resistance, Chloe's eyes darted around, and she ran toward the balcony, screaming. "Even Luna hates me. I don't want to live anymore. My life is over anyway." Terrified that she was having an episode, my parents rushed to grab her, sobbing and pleading. "Don't worry, Chloe. We won't let anything happen to you. We'll fix this." I watched them desperately comforting Chloe. I murmured, "Is suicide a golden ticket in this house? What if I kill myself too? What would you do?" In response, a glass cup flew through the air, followed by Arthur's furious roar. "Your sister is sick. How dare you compare yourself to her? She got sick because we spent too much time on you when you were kids and ignore her." The glass shattered against my head. Water mixed with blood dripped down my face. The last bit of hope I had for them died right there. They locked me inside my bedroom and took my phone. Through the door, I could hear them whispering sweet comfort to Chloe. My head throbbed with excruciating pain, and my face was smeared with blood from my head and my ear. I banged on the door, crying for help, but my voice was quickly drowned out by Chloe's dramatic sobbing. I could only watch the light under the door frame turn off. Everything fell into complete silence, and I drifted into darkness. The darkness was not a gentle sleep. It was a heavy, suffocating weight that pressed down on my chest. When I woke up, the metallic taste of blood was thick in my mouth. The room was freezing, the floorboards hard beneath my cheek. I tried to sit up, but a sharp, stabbing pain flared in my temple, and a high-pitched, mocking ring filled my right ear. I reached up to touch it, my fingers brushing against dried, crusty blood. The door to my room was still locked. From the hallway, the muffled sounds of my parents' hushed voices drifted in, punctuated by Chloe's occasional, soft whimpers. They were comforting her. They were telling her she was safe, that everything would be fine, while I lay on the floor of a dark room, bleeding and half-deafened. "Luna?" Eleanor's voice finally came through the keyhole, cautious and trembling. "Luna, open the door. The police are on their way. We have to talk." I didn't answer. I couldn't. When they finally unlocked the door, the bright morning light blinded me. Arthur stood there, his face pale, holding a fresh change of clothes. He didn't look at my blood-matted hair or the swelling on the side of my face. He just dropped the clothes on my bed. "Put these on," he said, his voice stripped of all warmth. "The investigators are waiting. Remember what we talked about? You fell. You had an argument with Clara on the stairs. It was an accident. If you say anything else, your sister—" He swallowed hard, his eyes darting toward Chloe's room. "She won't survive the night. Do you understand?" I looked at him, this man who used to carry cakes inside his coat so they wouldn't get cold for me. I looked at Eleanor, who was hiding behind him, unable to meet my eyes. "I understand," I whispered. My voice sounded strange, hollow, coming only from the left side of my head. And just like that, I was led away. I signed the confession. I took the plea deal their hand-picked lawyer practically forced down my throat. I was sentenced to 5 years. My parents didn't show up for the sentencing. They were too busy taking Chloe to a private sanitarium in the countryside, shielding her from the aftermath of the tragedy she had caused. "Luna, are you all right?" The guard's voice snapped me back to the present. The harsh glare of the afternoon sun hit my eyes, replacing the cold memory of that dark bedroom. "I'm fine," I said quietly, offering a small, polite smile to the guard who had asked if I knew the family in the SUV. "You sure?" he asked, looking down at my worn-out shoes and the single canvas bag in my hand. "Your ride. Are they still coming?" "They are," I replied. Right on cue, a quiet, dark blue sedan pulled up to the curb. It wasn't flashy, but it was clean and well-kept. The driver's side door opened, and a man in his late 40s stepped out. He wore a simple gray overcoat. His hair was peppered with silver at the temples, and his face bore the deep lines of someone who had carried an unspeakable grief for a very long time. It was Marcus. The guard's eyes widened slightly as he recognized him. Everyone in this county knew Marcus. He was a prominent local figure, a man of quiet influence, but more than that, he was the husband of Clara, the pregnant Professor Chloe had pushed down the stairs. 5 years ago, Marcus had looked at me in the courtroom with eyes full of absolute, burning hatred. I couldn't blame him. I was the monster who had confessed to destroying his entire world. But 3 years into my sentence, Marcus had walked into the prison visitation room. He hadn't come to yell. He had sat down, looked at the physical evidence of my ruptured eardrum, which had finally been documented by a prison physician, and looked at my frail, skeletal frame. He had hired his own investigators to quietly look into the Vance family. He realized a 90-pound, malnourished girl could not have physically overpowered Clara in the manner described in the police report. He realized the timeline didn't add up. And when he asked me the truth, I had looked him in the eyes and told him everything. I didn't ask for his forgiveness. I only wanted him to know that the person who took his wife and child from him was still out there, living a beautiful, untouched life. From that day on, Marcus became the only person who visited me. He brought me books. He helped me enroll in distance learning courses. He became the father Arthur had refused to be. "Luna," Marcus said, his voice warm and steady as he walked over. He didn't hesitate to take my heavy canvas bag from my hand. "You look tired. Let's get you home." "Thank you, Marcus," I said, my voice barely a whisper. As I got into the passenger seat, I looked back at the prison gates one last time. Somewhere in there, Chloe was probably smiling, showing off her new uniform, completely oblivious to the fact that the foundation of her perfect life was about to crumble. Marcus drove me to a small, sunlit apartment on the quiet side of town. It was modest but incredibly cozy. The shelves were lined with the law textbooks I had been studying in prison, and there was a small pot of yellow chrysanthemums blooming on the windowsill. "I stocked the fridge," Marcus said, hanging up his coat. "And I set up a desk for you. You can start working at the firm next Monday, assuming you still want the research assistant position." "I do," I said, touching the smooth wood of the desk. "More than anything." "The prosecutor's office has finally agreed to review the petition for exoneration," Marcus said, his tone turning serious as he sat down across from me. "With the medical records of your ear, the forensic reevaluation of the staircase struggle, and the testimony we secured from Chloe's former classmate, we have a solid case. But Luna, once we file this officially, there is no turning back. Your parents, your sister, they will be exposed. Chloe will face trial for voluntary manslaughter, and your parents will likely face charges for obstruction of justice and harboring a fugitive." I looked down at my hands. They were calloused from 5 years of prison labor, the skin rough and scarred. "They chose their path 5 years ago, Marcus," I said, looking up at him. "They locked me in a dark room and watched me bleed so their favorite daughter could run free. They didn't care about my life. Why should I care about theirs?" Marcus nodded slowly, a look of profound respect in his eyes. Then we moved forward. For the next 2 weeks, I threw myself into my work at Marcus's legal firm. I kept my head down, focusing on research and organizing case files. For the first time in 5 years, I felt like a human being again. I had a warm bed, decent food, and a purpose. But the peace was not meant to last. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon when the glass doors of the lobby swung open and the heavy scent of expensive perfume filled the air. I didn't even need to look up to know who it was. The sharp, hurried clicking of high heels on the tile floor was a sound I had heard my entire childhood. "Luna!" Eleanor's voice gasped. She rushed toward the reception desk where I was sorting papers. Behind her stood Arthur, his face flushed and his coat damp from the rain. I slowly stood up, keeping my expression entirely blank. "This is a private law firm. If you don't have an appointment, I'll have to ask you to leave." "Luna, please stop this nonsense," Arthur hissed, stepping forward and lowering his voice, though his tone was dripping with impatience. "We've been looking all over for you. We went to your old apartment building, we asked around, we never expected you to be working here. Of all places. With him." He gestured wildly toward the hallway leading to Marcus's private office. "Are you completely out of your mind?" Eleanor whispered, her eyes wide with terror. "Luna, that man hates our family. He thinks you're the one who. Why are you working for him? Is this your way of punishing us?" "I am earning a living," I said, my voice calm and steady. "And Marcus is a good man. He is the only person who treated me like a human being when I was behind bars."
He's using you.
Arthur snarled, slamming his hand onto the wooden counter. "He's using you to get to us. To get to Chloe. Don't you see that?" "Arthur, keep your voice down," Eleanor pleaded, grabbing his arm before looking back at me, her eyes welling with tears. "Luna, sweetheart, we need your help. Chloe is in trouble." I couldn't help but let out a cold, sharp laugh. "Chloe is in trouble? She just started her dream job. What could possibly be wrong?" Eleanor's face crumpled. She had an episode last week. A bad one. One of the inmates was talking back to her, and Chloe, she lost control. She locked the woman in a cell and turned off the ventilation. The woman almost suffocated. The prison administration is launching a full investigation. They're talking about suspension, even criminal charges. "And what does that have to do with me?" I asked, looking at her with genuine curiosity. "We need a lawyer, Luna," Arthur said, his voice desperate. "We heard Marcus is the most ruthless defense attorney in the state. He has connections with the prison board. If he represents Chloe, he can get the charges dropped.
You work for him now.
You have to convince him to take her case." I stared at them, utterly speechless. The sheer, unadulterated delusion of these two people was mind-boggling. They wanted the man whose pregnant wife had been killed by Chloe to defend Chloe for abusing an inmate. They truly believed the world revolved around their precious, sick daughter, and that everyone else was just a prop to be used for her survival. "Are you listening to yourselves?" I said, my voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "You want Marcus to save Chloe? The girl who pushed his wife down the stairs. It was an accident," Arthur yelled, his composure completely shattering. "The court ruled it was an accident. And besides, you are the one convicted, not Chloe. As far as the world is concerned, Chloe is innocent." "She is not innocent," a cold, booming voice echoed from the hallway. Marcus walked out of his office. His hands slid into his pockets, his posture rigid. His eyes were fixed on Arthur and Eleanor with a quiet fury that made both of them freeze. Mr. Vance, Eleanor stammered, stepping back, her face turning entirely pale. I suggest you take your hands off my employee's desk and leave my building immediately, Marcus said, his voice dangerously low. Mr. Vance, please, Arthur tried to argue, puffing out his chest in a desperate bid to maintain his dignity. We are willing to pay whatever retainer fee you demand. Name your price. Our daughter is sick. Your daughter is a murderer. Marcus cut him off, the words striking the room like a physical blow. And she is about to face the justice she should have faced 5 years ago. Eleanor gasped, covering her mouth with her hands. What do you mean? Marcus stepped closer, standing right beside me. He placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. We have filed the petition for Luna's exoneration, Marcus said, his voice steady and resolute. The state prosecutor has accepted the new evidence. A warrant for Chloe Vance's arrest for the murder of Clara Vance and her unborn child is being drafted as we speak. Arthur's face went from flushed to an ash gray in a matter of seconds. He shook his head, pointing a trembling finger at me. You did this, he whispered, his eyes filled with a terrifying rage. Luna, you betrayed your own blood. We gave you life. We raised you. You didn't give me life, Arthur, I said, looking him dead in the eye. You took my life, piece by piece, and handed it to Chloe. You broke my ear. You scarred my head. You locked me in a dark room while I bled, just to protect a monster. She is your sister. Eleanor sobbed, falling to her knees right there on the office floor.
She is sick.
If she goes to prison, she will die. She won't survive a single day in there. I survived 5 years, I said, my voice cold and unyielding. I'm sure she'll manage. Get out, Marcus ordered, his voice leaving no room for negotiation. Before I call the police to have you removed for trespassing. Arthur looked at me, his lip curling in a snarl of pure hatred. You are no daughter of mine. I wish we had never adopted you. I wish we had left you to rot.
Adopted?
The word hung in the air, cold and heavy. I stared at him, my heart stopping for a fraction of a second. But then, a strange sense of relief washed over me. So do I whispered. So do I. Arthur grabbed Eleanor by the arm, dragging her sobbing form up from the floor, and they stormed out of the office, slamming the glass doors behind them. The silence that followed was deafening. I stood there, my hands trembling slightly, but for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like crying. I felt light. I felt free. Marcus looked at me, his eyes full of concern. Are you okay, Luna? I've never been better, I said, and for the first time in 5 years, it was the absolute truth. The arrest of Chloe Vance was a media sensation, because she had recently been hired as a correctional officer at the very prison where her sister had served her sentence. The irony was too juicy for the local news outlets to ignore. The headlines screamed of family betrayal, dark secrets, and the ultimate sacrifice of an innocent sister. The hearing for my exoneration was scheduled for a rainy Thursday morning, the exact same day Chloe was to be formally arraigned. The courtroom was packed. The gallery was filled with reporters, curious onlookers, and, of course, Arthur and Eleanor. They sat on the defense side, looking 10 years older than they had 2 weeks ago. Their clothes were wrinkled, their eyes hollow and bloodshot. Chloe sat next to her defense attorney. She wasn't wearing her Proud Guard uniform anymore. She wore an orange jumpsuit, the very same jumpsuit I had worn for 5 long years. She looked frantic, her eyes darting around the room, her fingers constantly twitching. She was having a manic episode, but this time, there were no loving parents allowed to rush to her side and shield her. 2 heavy-set bailiffs stood directly behind her, their hands resting on their utility belts. When Marcus and I walked in, the courtroom fell silent. I wore a simple, elegant dark blue suit. My hair was neatly tied back, exposing the faint scar near my temple. I walked with my head held high, my posture straight. As I passed the defense table, Eleanor reached out, her voice a broken whimper. Luna, please look at your sister. Look at what you're doing to her. I didn't even turn my head. I walked straight to the petitioner's table and sat down next to Marcus. The judge entered, and the proceedings began. Marcus stood up, his voice commanding and clear as he presented the new evidence. Your Honor, 5 years ago, a grave injustice was committed. A young woman, barely 19, was coerced, physically abused, and psychologically manipulated into taking the fall for a double homicide she did not commit. Marcus projected the medical reports onto the screen. The images of my ruptured eardrum, the photos of the head wound I had suffered the night of the crime, and the psychological evaluation detailing the years of systemic abuse I had endured at the hands of Arthur and Eleanor Vance. Then he played an audio recording. It was a recording Marcus's investigators had obtained from a security camera installed in the hallway of the Vance home years ago, one that Arthur had forgotten to delete when he cleared the main security system. The audio was faint, but my voice was unmistakable. Is suicide a golden ticket in this house? What if I kill myself too? What would you do? Followed by the sharp shatter of glass and Arthur's furious roar. Your sister is sick. How dare you compare yourself to her? The courtroom gasped. Eleanor buried her face in her hands, weeping loudly, while Arthur stared at the table, his face a mask of defeat. Next came the testimony of Chloe's former classmate, who recounted seeing Chloe in a heated argument with Professor Clara Vance on the stairs, physically pushing her after Clara refused to change her failing grade. Finally, the prosecutor stood up. He looked at the judge, then at me. Your Honor, in light of the overwhelming physical evidence, the newly recovered audio, and the eyewitness testimony, the state concedes. We join the petition for the full exoneration of Luna Vance. The judge nodded slowly, his expression grim as he looked down at his papers. He brought his gavel down with a sharp, echoing crack. The conviction of Luna Vance is hereby vacated. Her record is expunged of all charges. Miss Vance, this court offers its deepest apologies for the miscarriage of justice you have suffered. A quiet cheer erupted from the gallery. I closed my eyes, a single tear escaping down my cheek. 5 years. 5 years of hell, of silence, of being treated like a monster. It was finally over. I was clean. I was free. And now, the judge said, his tone turning cold as ice as he looked toward the defense table. We will proceed with the arraignment of Chloe Vance on 2 counts of second-degree murder and the arraignment of Arthur and Eleanor Vance on charges of obstruction of justice, perjury, and accessory after the fact. Chloe let out a blood-curdling scream. She stood up, knocking her chair backward, and tried to lunge toward me. You ruined my life, she shrieked, her face twisted in a mask of pure, unbridled rage.
You were supposed to protect me.
You promised. You're my sister. You're nothing without us. The bailiffs immediately grabbed her arms, forcing her down onto the table as she thrashed and kicked, screaming obscenities. Arthur tried to push past the barrier to get to her, but a deputy blocked his path, shoving him back. Stay back, sir. Eleanor fell to her knees, wailing, her hands clutching at the carpet as she watched her precious daughter being restrained and led away in handcuffs. I stood up, smoothing the front of my suit. Marcus looked at me, a soft, proud smile on his face. Are you ready to go, Luna? Yes, I said. Let's go home. As we walked down the grand stone steps of the courthouse, the rain had stopped, and the afternoon sun was breaking through the heavy gray clouds, casting a warm, golden light over the city. Luna, wait. I stopped at the bottom of the steps. Arthur and Eleanor were running down after me. They had been released on bail pending their trial, but they looked like ghosts. Their hair was disheveled, their eyes swollen. They looked small, pathetic. Luna, please, Eleanor sobbed, reaching out to grab my hand, but she stopped herself, her hand trembling in midair as she saw the cold, empty look in my eyes. We have nothing left. The house is being mortgaged to pay for Chloe's defense. We're going to lose everything. We might go to prison. I know, I said, my voice dead calm. How can you be so heartless? Arthur whispered, though the anger in his voice was gone, replaced by a desperate, pleading whimper. We raised you. We put food on your table. We gave you a home. Yes, we made mistakes. We were desperate to save Chloe. But we are still your parents. You can't just walk away and leave us to rot. I looked at them, the 2 people who had defined my entire existence, who had wielded my desire for their love like a weapon to destroy me. You didn't make mistakes, Arthur, I said, my voice carrying clearly in the quiet afternoon air. You made a choice. You chose Chloe over me, every single day, until there was nothing left of me to give. I took a step closer to them, looking at Eleanor's tear-stained face. You told me that once this blew over, it wouldn't affect my future at all, I said, repeating the very words she had told me on my 19th birthday. Well, now it's your turn. I'm sure once this blows over, it won't affect your future at all. Eleanor let out a choked gasp, her knees buckling as Arthur caught her, both of them staring at me in utter horror. I turned my back on them. Marcus was waiting by the car, the door open for me. I walked down the steps, my steps light, my heart quiet and at peace. The girl who begged for her parents' love, the girl who took the blame and suffered in silence, was gone. She had died in that dark, locked room 5 years ago. But the woman who walked out of those gates was alive. And for the first time in my life, the future was entirely mine to write.